Thank you, Gail. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's like 9:04, I think, 9:03, 9:03. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, guess we'll have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Hurtak, I believe, is running late. Frank Coffenauer,
Here virtually.
Yanika Mills, Michael Marino, David Hay,
Present.
Emily Hinsdale,
Present.
Danielle Riffenberg,
Here virtually.
Anna Grunman,
Here virtually.
Karen Krass,
Here.
Rebecca Hessinger,
Here.
Omar Pirzada,
Present.
Jason Jackman,
Here virtually.
Nicole Dufa.
Also here virtually.
Thank you. Gloria Marbelangia,
Here virtually.
Sarah Templeman,
Present.
Una Johnson,
Here.
Catherine Coyle is excused, Arizona Jenkins.
You go ahead.
Thank you. Gus Ignis, Ashley Anderson, Debbie Roney. Let me do a quick check for in person.
Gail Caroline Seacon
Second.
is here on behalf of Michael Marino for the West Shore.
Connor, has she gone in front of the, has her appointment been approved by the TPO board yet?
I don't think so.
Okay. So she can be there as a non-voting member, and then make sure to get that information to Cheryl and I, please.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
It looks like we do have a 9-person in-person quorum, correct? That's what I'm counting.
Yes.
Great. Let me know when Councilmember Hurtak gets there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gail. Do we have any public comment? I don't think in the room, but online either, nothing? Yes.
Sorry. No.
No, okay. I didn't think so, but
Thank you.
sure. All right, approval of minutes from December 18th, 2024.
Move.
All right, we have a second. Karen. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, approved. All right, I guess we're going to the action item first. Election of officers.
Morning for those that haven't met, I'm the LRC liaison, Connor Travis McDonald. So the election of officers, the attendance review and declaration of vacancies, I suggest we do it in 2 parts, one being the election of officers and the other second part being attendance review. The election of officers, I will note that Councilmember Hurtak is appointed by the TPO board. So her position is there. And then, so we do have vice chair and officer at large. We can take nominations. We need 1 nomination. So it doesn't require 2, and then we can vote. And yes. So any nominations for vice chair or keep as is?
I'd like to know if David would be willing to serve another term.
I'd be willing.
Thank you.
Sure.
So a nomination for David Hay. Any others? So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
An officer at large, Catherine Boyle, she's excused today, but has not expressed any. She's not expressed not serving in that position. So I'll take any nominations for officer at large.
Karen, you wanna?
Or keep as is.
I'll nominate Kathy Coyle if no one else in the room is interested.
So one nomination for Kathy Boyle and others. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
So Karen,
Then I'll look.
guess what? We gave you responsibilities.
Congratulations, Catherine, here, but. It did. There are a few positions that have received, three or more, non-excused absences. My recommendation is to keep as is, and I will gladly reach out to these, positions. One note is neighborhoods. Unfortunately, Debbie Bonnie has not been able to make it. So we can reach out to her and we can have an application on file, that we can suggest. So my suggestion is to keep it as is, and if anybody has any, different feelings about that, we can certainly, but this is, an action item that David.
I move that we keep it as is for now. Second. Second with Arizona. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Well, second. You're all set with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just making sure. All right, next on to the status report. We have Hart's Roof One service improvements. Good morning.
Morning. Well, it's our planning scheduling part. Used to be back in front of the committee. Just going to present the Route 1 Fare Free pilot with the service improvements funded by the city of Tampa. So most of you are probably aware of this, but this was a request we got from City Council, from Councilwoman Burtak made the motion, and Council voted to have us present a concept for this pilot, and this presentation is basically what we presented to Council. So this corridor, you know, why she chose Route 1, this is identified as both the streetcar extension corridor and the bus rapid transit corridor, which are the two, really the two highest service related capital project priorities in our TPO priority list. You know, Hillsborough's top transit priorities. It's one of the highest ridership routes in the HART network. Routes 1 and Route 6 actually both operate on this corridor. Route 6 only operates from the Marion Transit Center downtown up to Florida, Nebraska. And Route 1 operates from all the way from Whiting up to Fletcher and over to the University Transit Center. There's a strong connection to the streetcar at the Whiting Street Station. It connects about 70% of all of the routes in the system touch Route 1. So it's a real like workhorse, if you will, for all of our bus service in the county, city, and it's just it's a great service. So we really like the idea and worked with city council to make this happen. One of the benefits of the proposal is we had actually dialed back the frequency of this route from 15 to 20 minutes because we didn't have enough time on the route. So we basically schedule service based on the amount of time it takes to get from one end to the other. And that time is growing due to traffic and other reasons. So we had to reduce the frequency of the service to add time to it in the last year or so. So this pilot helped us get some additional funding to add frequency back in, which means adding more buses to make this schedule work and to get it back to 15 minutes. So that's part of the pilot, is getting it back to 15 minutes and also making it fare free. Some of the other reasons this is a great route, there's about 32,000 residents within a quarter mile and 56,000 jobs. If you expand that to a half a mile, it basically doubles those numbers to 64,000 residents and 100,000 jobs within a half a mile of a stop along the route. 18% of those households within a quarter mile do not own a vehicle, 26% are under the poverty line, 64% 4% are minority and 14% have disability. Which is also part of the reason why it's such a great route, right? There's a lot of different people who need this service, are already using transit pretty regularly. So as I said, the proposal was to bring back 15-minute service all day on the weekdays from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Which actually increases the revenue hours. That's basically the time that we're operating service. That's considered a revenue hour in transit speak. And the cost of increasing that service was about $640,000. And then the separate piece of this was to remove the fare. What we needed the city to do was basically pay us for the money that we collected in the previous year that we already count on as revenue to fund our operation. So if they want us to make it fare free, they got to pay us for that amount. So that is where we got the $850,000 from. And then the last component was the paratransit. I'll touch on that in a second. But this got us to about 1.5 million for the pilot for this fiscal or actually calendar year. And then the paratransit impacts, the federal requirements are that you must provide paratransit service. And it cannot be more than double the cost of the bus service. So that means a $2 bus has a $4 paratransit service within the corridor. And if there's a $0 fare, then 2 times 0 is 0, that we must provide that for free as well. So City Council also funded that $150,000 to offset the lost revenue for paratransit that we estimate along the corridor within a mile and a half. So the full cost of the program was 1.65 million. Council approved that. That's where we've gotten to today. We're just a weekend, so the ridership's slightly up right now. But the real positive thing right now is that, you know, one of the best things about this program is not only just access to people who need it the most, but it reduces, for the same reason the streetcar service has improved so much, the time it takes people to pay, whether they're tapping with their phone or their credit card or going through cash, that has gone away. So the service has sped up. Our on-time performance is up past 80%. It was probably, I think it was in the 60s before the pilot started. So that's been a great thing to see in the first week and a half. And yeah, we're excited. There's a lot of room for growth. So we're going to really work with our partners to promote this. Thanks to the partnership, I know they've been a big champion for this. I'm sure they'll help us spread the word and to get more folks trying the service. The councilwoman probably has a lot to say about this, so hopefully she gets here soon. But yeah, it's really exciting. There hasn't been a lot of excitement around bus service for some time here. So this is a great first step, and hopefully it'll lead to more partnerships with the city for more funding in the future. Take any questions?
Good questions.
Arizona?
When you buy a hot blood and you book it to, how do they know that you're going down on that area so you can buy to be right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how does, when they book a trip on Heart Plus, how do our customer service representatives basically know that it's in the zone? So the day before, we basically batch all those trips the day before for everybody who's pre-booked, and we get the start and end point of each trip. And if it's within a buffer that we've drawn in the software, it's flagged as related to Route 1. And so that relays to the operator and the person booking the trip that it is a no charge for Route 1. And then we basically run that report at the end of the month, and that's what we bill the city. But it's basically just the software program that identifies the 2 trips. If they're within the buffer, then it means there's no charge. And then the operator knows that as well.
It did put in the buffer. It did locate in the buffer.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I did know that.
Say that again.
I don't know. On the way home, I'll look at that.
Well, is your house within the buffer too?
Uh,
Is your house within the buffer? But it's got to be both ends of the trip. If it's only one end, then that doesn't apply.
That doesn't matter when they locating to the back.
If it starts and ends, then that would apply to the paratransit service. But if one end is outside of that buffer, then it does not apply. It's the same $4 rate
Okay,
as it.
that's what I want to know.
Yeah, So that's a really good question that only you could answer this.
Rebecca,
What happens after 6 p.m.?
It just goes down to 30-minute service.
Okay, so it's still free, just.
Yeah, so it's free 7 days a week. The service improvement, it only applies to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., where it's every 15 minutes. But the service is free 24 hours a day for the whole year.
Does the bus run around the clock or does it stop at midnight or?
It's about 1 to 4 a.m. It doesn't run.
Okay. Think about university residents that might have jobs where they don't even get off until 6 months. Like, what do they do?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, it's 21 hours a day, more or less.
I thought that on the weekends it stopped at 10.
It's a little later than that, but
I didn't even thought of a minute.
11, okay. Because I saw it on a sign. And then I was late because I missed the one I was supposed to be on. So I got on the next one. Sorry.
A few minutes early.
Yeah, so I missed it. It's been one of those mornings though, where like nothing's right. So I did notice though that the little placards that are supposed to have been on are still not at my stop at least.
Yeah, they're still rolling this out.
Okay.
I would have expected them to be on by now, so I'll follow up. Or Omar.
are those placards? What are those?
They're very small little additions to the sign. I don't know if you have a picture of one that basically just says on the sign itself, free. It's really cool.
Oh, there.
Yeah, right
Oh,
there.
right there.
Yeah,
Oh,
isn't
okay.
that neat?
I think it's the black one.
Yeah. So Route 1 fare free, and they had it at Whiting, and it's very exciting. It's just been wonderful. Yesterday, I rode the bus 3 stops to go to lunch with someone, and I felt a little embarrassed to do that. But I think that's one of the things that everyone should be encouraged to try.
And you missed this part. One of the best things early on, we've seen a little bit of a spike in ridership, I think from like 35 to 3,700, something like that. But we're working through some data issues, so that number is likely to go up. But the on-time performance is up over 80%, from the 60s, I think, last markup. So that's a big positive. And actually, it's 80% on time roughly, and that 20% isn't late. There's some earlies in there because we're a little bit ahead of what we estimated because it's so fast to get on and off. So that means we're gonna be able to adjust throughout the year, and the more ridership that builds, the less earlies we'll see, but I encourage you to get out there 1 or 2 minutes early.
Yeah. Like I said, it was a day. It was a morning. But yes, it's been really exciting. I've ridden it pretty much more days than I haven't, and it's been really wonderful. I don't know if there's a way we can incentivize this group to do a ride or something like that, because that's one of the things I'm working with some transit advocates on, getting folks out to ride who've never experienced it before. So if that's something that appeals to folks, maybe we can do a field trip of sorts.
Take it on board. Great. I do want to say we're finalizing the public facing materials for Gasparilla right now. And since Route 1 is free, we're going to supplement that with, because it's only 30 minutes on Saturday, we're going to supplement that with some extra service from Palm Avenue South to get every 15 minutes from the Sprouts and Armature Works area. So we'll be promoting that. I'll make sure to send that over to you, Karen, as well. But we really want to promote that as a park and ride or an Uber drop off, or work with the city communications folks as well to kind of keep as much traffic out of downtown as possible.
Love it.
And the city has been really great. Margaret Kublins, shout out to her. The routing has changed for the first time in many years. I've been working on this for a while, and sometimes change is hard, but we're doing it. So they've given us a little better access around some of the MOT, the maintenance and transportation, to get down to Brewerine in Florida as our drop off and pickup for the bus shuttles that supplement the streetcar. So that'll be on that material, but we really want to promote the Route 1 all the way up and down the line because it's free, but also just the shuttle service from the Armature Works area as a good drop-off location for people to get down to the Gasparilla festivities. So we'll have bus shuttles in Ybor and on the Route 1 corridor going into downtown, and then the streetcar service, of course, will be.
What you doing about it?
Sorry.
Where's the drop off?
So we've had a lot of issues over the years going further south than basically the crosstown. So we get stuck in traffic. It's just a giant mess. So we're pulling it back to Brewerine. So we would go down Morgan basically to Brewerine and then stop right there at the corner of Florida Avenue. And then it'll just be another 3 blocks or so down to the convention center area and all that. So we're trying to stay out of the worst traffic. We get as close as we can without getting stuck in traffic.
That's
It's been really great, including TPD, which is
nice.
usually not the best, most pleasant coordination, but this year has been a lot better. Thanks.
Justin, I don't think you mentioned where this funding pot was coming from the city.
So this funding was transferred from some electric vehicle charging line item.
But it came from parking revenue.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
That's the
from-
point. Yeah.
Yeah, it came from parking revenue. So yes, we had $5 million went toward extra paving throughout the city to help get us up to par where we need to be. And that was that 5 million was to go toward I don't know what it's called. It's the signage where you go to a parking garage and they tell you how many spaces there are in a parking garage. So they wanted to spend $5 million on that and council said, no, we need paving. And then they wanted to spend $1.5 million on putting EV chargers in public parking garages. And we said, no, it'd be better used for the community, which is the free bus. Thank you for helping me plug that. But that's actually the great part about riding the one now is that it on the front of the bus, I don't know if you have a picture of it, it says fare free in 2025, paid for by City of Tampa. So that is on the bus constantly rotating as you see it around town or when you wait to get on it. So we really appreciate Hart for that connection. It's been really lovely.
That's just the old one, but we'll share it.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Nice. A couple questions. This falls in complete alignment with the comp plan because even the policy 1.9.6 talks about continuing to leverage revenues generated by the city's parking enterprise to fund supporting transit. So it's an important component of the comp plan. That was the first thing. I wanted to ask, people will always fixate on a number. At the end of the year, is there a plan to analyze the costs associated with more people riding that bus is, I would assume, less traffic, less emissions, things like that, have their own costs. Is that calculated in when we look at the improvements of, on ridership of those people are now not clogging our roads, they're on a bus? How is that measured?
Yeah, that's gonna be hard to measure because there are a lot of external factors that are gonna affect what happens with traffic on that corridor, right? Like as soon as the interstate work is done from downtown to Hillsborough, which is gonna be in the next few months, that's probably gonna pull more traffic off of that corridor than this probably would. So we'd rely on traffic counts from DOT to measure a before and after, but we can definitely, estimate the increase in transit and what that potentially could hold off of the corridor traffic wise. That may be more of a good survey to take of residents along the corridor. It's probably more about vibes, if you will, right? For people that are driving it, did it feel like better traffic? I'd say that gets into a little bit of a magical analysis because there's so many other things that contribute to how the traffic's going to work.
Any calculation on emissions? Because those have costs right?
Yeah, we have not discussed any kind of methodology to that deep level of detail. We're really looking at, on-time performance, travel speeds, dwell time per stop, how long does it take people to get on and off, ridership increase, and then trying to figure out how we can measure new riders, like how many people tried the service just because of the pilot. I know that's a big one for the councilwoman that we're also super interested in.
But I think that, to your point, we could do that with the speed of like the on time, if that makes sense, of the bus, of if it's able to stay on time, that does say that traffic is better. You know what I mean? So if the bus is able to stick with its plan, which is perfect conditions, then that means that traffic is getting better. Well, yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, not worse.
Lamar Alpha Sheet, with the county has a tool that I think is gonna be released soon. Calculating greenhouse gas production emissions, so maybe that's a potential to.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is something that Omar or a council member can provide us, but I think we'd all love to see the data as the year goes by. It's kind of regular updates. If that could come to this group, that would be great.
Yeah,
Just because this funding issue will come up again before council, and it would be good to have that information out to as many people as possible.
yeah, I think maybe monthly, just bring a little handout, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a 5 second, just this is the number
Yeah,
now.
that'd be good.
That would be
Great to see.
wonderful. Karen?
Could this pilot somehow help the future BRT
Yes.
project? And is there anything we can do to help advocate that to FDOT, especially have its transit signal priority or its own lane or?
Yeah, so that is one of the, I think, probably one of the reasons I think the councilwoman proposed this was we know that the ridership projection needs to go up to ever get a dedicated lane on that corridor. So this is consistent with trying to eventually deliver BRT. There is some transit signal priority that's coming online right now, actually, through the FDOT. I think it's the FRAME project, or the integrated corridor management. They might be the same thing. I don't know. It's a little bit confusing for a non-technical signal engineer. But it's, so like, I think like 80% of our vehicles are equipped with TSP now, which is gonna work on 250 or 300 intersections throughout Hillsborough County, which has been a long time coming. So some of that priority is already on some of the intersection on this corridor. Don't ask me which ones, but major state highways, I'm sure. So I think that's already helping our operation a little bit throughout the whole network. But there's probably a few places where we need stronger priority, and that would probably be more associated with the BRT project.
But you don't have a timeline on what FDOT's saying or BRT or?
No, the legislative session was not super friendly to transit last year, and delivering dedicated bus lanes has become more problematic, difficult, and political. So we're kind of just focusing on other initiatives and trying to make sure that that still stays on the priority list for now. And maybe the points will change a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I was able to sell it on council. That's basically how I kind of got the fourth vote, was this is a pilot for the BRT, seeing how it will be able to, if it has, because it's I mean, old numbers are $95 million for the BRT. And, 1.65 million is nothing compared to that. So we want to show that it's something that people will use. I, just like Justin said, I don't believe that Tallahassee's going to change in the next 2 years. But after that, if we start to show that this is something that can really help people in cars, is the way I'm trying to couch it. If we can get people who live along the route to take the bus, then the people who live much further out will have an easier time getting in. It's not really the way, as a transit advocate, I like to speak, but it's basically trying to meet drivers where they are. So the other thing I'm trying to advocate, not as much publicly, even though this is a public meeting, is for people who live further out, maybe parking on a side street near a bus stop, because parking on a street is legal as long as you park in the right space. No one can say you can't park in front of their house.
Even with one of those.
Even with one of those signs, but I mean, it's something to consider too, for people who don't want to spend $50 a month or $75. I don't know how much it costs to park downtown on a daily basis or a monthly basis, but And something like that, that could help people with some basic income issues.
If you do that, wanna make sure that we're gonna park, not park in the bus area. Because.
Well, you can't park on Florida Avenue, so that's not really an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I got over here to get the kids dropped off, there was some money in the parents' transit box. So I had to get up in the middle of the street, because somebody's parked in the hotline football field.
Yeah, that is actually just a good point that may want to talk to the people at the Hyatt. Have someone mention that the bus only space really means bus only. I have yet to be able to get on the one at that stop without standing in the street. Because of, Amazon trucks, whatever. It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
They moved that stop and now it's absolutely super dangerous for people to try to get on. At
That's,
Kennedy and Florida.
we'll do our operations, our supervisors, but that's all, the ticketing, that's the city of Tampa ticketing.
Okay,
prior
awesome.
to, so
I
we'll
will,
talk to them.
I will 1000% talk to our new
I
party.
can't write tickets yet, but I have dreams.
Well, we have a brand new, we hired in the 2024 budget, 7 new parking attendants, which is why we have so much more money, by the way. They have paid for themselves and then some.
I had a question. If we're getting some new riders, is there like, and I don't even know if this is legal, but is there a way to incentivize them to go, hey, thank you for trying the number one. We have a whole system here that can get you places. Is there a way to, like, I don't know how you would maybe coach them to try the 19 or whatever, like try a different line is.
I mean, that's the idea, but they're pretty much anonymous, so we don't really have a good way to reach them. We're just trying to get them on one. It's like a gateway drug, right? You get them in once and hopefully they try other things.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing as the streetcar. That was another impetus is, oh, wow, the streetcar's done so well,
Right.
being free that, yeah, and if we make Route 1 free and people expect it, then yeah, absolutely. That's part of what the transit advocates are hoping toward the end of the year is to get people to try other routes, learn how to pay, like that's become a issue, like how do you, and now that we found out that you can just use the tap from your card or from your phone, you don't even need to have the Flamingo Fares app, which is problematic for some. You can just tap your credit card or your debit card and you're on.
Makes it much easier.
Just
Oh,
always
yeah.
remember to use the same card. We have what's called fare capping, so you cannot ever pay more than $4 a day, ride as many buses as you want, and then you cannot pay more than $65 a month. But you have to use the same card, so it recognizes you're using the same payment method. So you'll tap twice, you'll charge $4, and then every additional tap in that day is free. So
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I don't think we share enough. So ideally, I don't know enough about advertising, but they have some sort of geolocated
geofencing.
geofencing.
Yeah.
So maybe try to target ads to Route 1 to get people to try other routes. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something pushing forward with our community engagement outreach.
Sarah.
Is this something that we could organize a technical tour with GT with GT with Greater Tampa Section IT? Is this something that we could get like people to do, kind of like what you were saying, get some of our members? I mean, they work with FDOT and at FDOT, so we could get everyone. We need like to have some, like a dedicated bus for it, but.
Well, the good thing is it comes every 15 minutes, so we don't need a dedicated bus. But we guess ride-alongs for sure. We've done that with city council already. We've done that with the Tampa Bay Partnership. We could organize something where we all just meet up and, like somewhere in Tampa Heights or Armature, take it down to the streetcar and then take it back. A lunch excursion, anything like that. If you want to reach out, get in touch with the communications team and they can talk organize them.
Awesome. Yeah, and any group that you think might benefit from it, any community group, any group such as that, just any type of professional group. I know I spoke to Johnny, and he said that he was going to take his team up and use it as team building, because apparently they do different team building. They were going to ride the one to somewhere to lunch and back. So just anything. And I'm happy to, I mean, I know that Justin will join, but I'm happy to join any ride that I'm invited to if I'm able. So happy to do that.
Do you think that, the new transit advocacy group that I think Dana might be leading would want to know about these kinds of things?
Absolutely.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Almost have like a schedule that it might take some pressure off of Justin.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. In fact, that is, Dana and I just met yesterday for lunch. That's the one I rode 3 stops to get to. But yes, we are definitely talking about how to do that. We have a meeting coming up in February, so I can let everybody know. It's not set in stone yet, so I can let you know at the next meeting about it. So she said it should be set in stone by then. So anybody who's interested, it's a Saturday meeting, so it can be something that folks can do. And if you can't attend, I can also try to provide a update at the March meeting. Sorry, I saw another hand. Oh,
and a wig and the hands on my thumb, like my hand. Get there, like no bags, and we go put next. Look at this, yep. Look at all next. We can pick up. So have it. We can't get our phone out of the case. We think we're gonna have to get the phone out. Then I was wondering if there's something we could put a line next. Like you know how you go like how you go from that over the keep that. This thing and get it and then it's good to go.
I don't know about other routes, but Route 1, you don't have to do anything. You just hop on.
Yeah,
That I don't know. You'd have to ask Justin about something that would be easier to tap for folks who.
just like when they do it, like when you open that door, they just take it back and open the door. It was nothing like that. Well, lovely they can't grab their phone to use the app. Oh, well, I can't.
Yeah, there's a card too, isn't there? That's not an app.
Yeah, so you get the plastic card, Flamingo card, you can get at Marion Transit Center or the University Area Transit Center, or you can download the app, which gives you the QR code to tap.
Yeah, he was saying that the app is difficult and they prefer a card. So there is a card.
The app is helping me to get the phone out.
Yeah, it's not my favorite either, so we
So it's
suggest.
definitely like you wear on your neck, so they get the bag and have it.
That does exist, so you can get that.
But like I said, you can just skip all that, use a debit or credit card that's tappable. Or you can use Apple or Android Pay to just use the virtual pay method.
A lot of people don't want to use the scam.
Well, the Flamingo card's gotta be tied to a credit card as well, though, so.
Again, then when you get to the bus, you have the Flamingo card in a little thing that you wear on your neck. You can pick it up and I know.
Yeah, we don't have a ton today, so.
You understand what I'm saying?
The lanyard to go with it, is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't think we provide that, I mean, but
No, you have your own lane. Then you just take this from me, whatever you got and put it.
yeah, that would work with the Flamingo card for sure. That'd be fine.
Oh, we will do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you need from me though, but yeah, that there's nothing stopping people from putting it in a lanyard, that would be fine.
And then make it easy for us to grab it. Like, I'm out here, we can grab it.
this is my own curiosity. I have two kids. So if I'm boarding the bus and I'm paying with a credit card, I would assume I tap 3 times for them.
So that's where it gets a little complicated. There is a family pass, so you can purchase like a multiple person pass within the application.
Oh,
But for, you would need to use different credit cards.
Okay,
So
that's
we're working on that on the back end. It's a big issue with like the vendor who
Right.
operates the system. But because what we don't want to do is somebody to accidentally tap multiple times
right.
and get double charged. So that, the fear of that is greater than our desire to accommodate you and your kids. Right? So we need to figure that out first. And if it's like a 2-second delay minimum between taps. But then we get into, well, then there goes the whole speed of boarding thing. So it's
Well, and then
a pretty nuanced.
the $65 tap, if it was the same card, it would actually come out cheaper if a family was right. But that's just curious how that.
Yeah, but then you would be able to game the system. Right, so then you'd have 3 people fair capping for the price of 1.
Right.
So you wouldn't even be able to tap 3 times because it would fair cap you after the second one. So there's a lot of technical nuances to that, although I wish we could do it.
Had one quick question, because I know you've probably been coordinating with USF. That's why the route goes from USF to downtown. Is there a way maybe USF or you are tracking the amount of students that come down and use this?
So that's the thing about the Fare Free pilot. We're not tracking anything as far as who's using it, how.
Because what do you think they are? I mean, the university is?
No, I don't think so.
They already get free service, USF.
They get a discount.
Right.
So
It's more just like who's using it, because it's a very car-centric university itself. So it would be great to know that this big population of students coming downtown using it, but.
yeah, it would probably be like a pretty robust survey effort to try to figure that out.
The trick too is that it actually doesn't go to campus. It goes to University Area Transfer Center, which then at that transfer center has a stop for the Bull Runner, which is what actually takes you to campus. So it's one additional stop, but that is something that, we would like to work.
Yeah, when that stadium gets built,
Yeah, oh, no, 100%. That's gonna be a huge, and apparently there's different routes of the Bull Runner. So this is the route that it actually connects to is the one that goes fully around the university. So it's a good one. And I've talked to several of my friends who teach at USF who I'm trying to encourage to at least try it for transit to get to work. So we'll see. That's one of those things as well that I'd like to do is be able to find a group of staff, professors that would be willing to give it a try. Again, I'm not trying to make people do it every day, all day, but at least to give it a try once or twice a week to see how it rolls into your day plan.
First of all, thank you for bringing it into unincorporated county. That's free. But I think at one point we understood that a lot of people that were coming to the medical school also use the main campus, and they're the ones that were doing the back and forth. So that might be a place to start.
Yeah, okay, medical school, good to know. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I see a lot of med students on the streetcar too. A lot of med students on the streetcar.
In general, what we need from USF is an actual transit center that Art can go to on campus. And that would be the type of, that would move the needle for us. So right now, it's not the best service when you force a transfer within like a quarter mile of the campus. We'd rather be able to take on some of that service and end it on the campus because it's a real disincentive in a hugely car-oriented commuter campus. But that's true for more routes, not just rail.
Yeah.
Can I ask, since we're kind of getting a little, USF, why haven't they provided you guys space at least do they give you guys a reason of like, oh, we don't have space, or we got this parking lot here that we need, or what's their reasoning behind not?
I mean, this isn't the county commission, so it's more of a legacy of how people treat public transit in this region. But I think the new leadership at USF is probably more open to it than the past. But you could take that.
Well, I can say it. People are, the USF is afraid of people coming on campus who don't belong on campus. You know,
Anyone could walk right on it.
correct. And it's the exact same issue that I've heard from members of the community and even members of council who were hesitant about this. They were like, well, you know, homeless people can ride it all day. And I said, well, if that were true, homeless people could ride the streetcar all day too, and they don't. And so it's like, it's a, you know, and there are ways to, if it becomes a problem, there are ways to stop that. When I was in Cincinnati, their streetcar system basically said you can ride one full route and then you got to get off.
Right.
It was like, but yeah, if it becomes a problem, there are ways to solve it. But right now, we don't see it as an overall problem. I don't know if that's something that's going to come up, but I don't think so. I think what's happening, what I see more is that people are taking it for much shorter trips. So I saw from the Marion Transit Center, there were a couple of ladies who were using wheelchairs and they got on at the Marion Transit Center and then they got off at the Salvation Army, which is the first stop. But it was a cold day. It made a lot of sense. Just less traversing for them, just made their lives easier. Great. So.
I just give one problem. Okay, you're gonna this gonna go. Again, all that. There's a person every weekend waiting to get on. And you only got 2 wheelchairs left.
Yeah.
And the people sitting in those slots, they won't get up. They don't have to get up. But that's the issue. That person will be at that bus stop for 30 minutes in the parking lot. You can't get up. So I've been there.
I don't know. I think that's something that, you know, the bus driver, each bus driver has to deal with.
Because they don't have to get up, allow.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's definitely an issue. Karen.
I know this is lingering, this conversation, but unless someone can correct me, my understanding is that since T-BARTA Commuter Services dissolved, FDOT has not brought back the emergency ride home program, which is designed if you take an alternate mode 2 or more days per week, get a free Uber home in case of an emergency. So Enterprise running the van pool has on their own dime continued to offer that for van pullers, but it was never a real heavily used, thus not very costly for FDOT to administer, but I still think it's a great just kind of safety net to know that it's there if an emergency does come up and you've taken the bus to work and you get sick and need to get home or what have you. So as you're talking to our friends at FDOT, I encourage you to advocate for that. I've asked several times and they're considering what to do with it. And that's been like 2 years. It's called Emergency Ride Home. Anyone who would bus, carpool, bike, walk, anything but drive alone.
That's great. Wow, there's all these great things you just don't learn about until it's fun.
It's only great if they bring it back.
Yes, but yeah.
I had a question really for Connor. And so regarding this conversation about USF, could we, and I know we're just a recommending body, could we, if we, as a group, decide, write a letter to the MPO encouraging them to encourage, because there's important members on the MPO, encourage USF to work with HART on, I mean, it would just be a letter, but I don't know if that is appropriate to ask based on this conversation, or
I know that this is Citizens Advisory Committee, the CAC has written letters to the TPO board. It's certainly something we can explore. If you would allow me to talk with the TPO staff and find out what our options could be, I can bring that back as a full
yeah,
business.
I think in the past, we've written letters just encouraging the MPO to do certain things. You can't force them to do anything, but it would just give, my thought would give the sense that this is a conversation that needs to happen, and we at least think it's important enough that USF should be talking with her about that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that USF isn't talking to her.
We have a couple online, one being.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of representative,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well then, yeah, and I saw Gus's hand first, so I'll go to Gus.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there. But just to support Karen's mention of the EHR program, Emergency Ride Home, ERH. I used it often when I worked in Pinellas to come home because of the limited bus service between the two counties. But they've changed the program significantly. It used to be you would just provide your signed voucher. Now they want you to pay and you get reimbursed. So that might be a little bit more difficult for economically challenged people, particularly if you're coming across the bay. But the program did work. I used it numerous times in past years, but it was through T-BARDA. So I wanted to thank her for bringing that up, and it's not available to us now. And I work out in New Tampa, so if I miss the bus, it's another whole hour before another bus comes. So it would be a recommendation. The whatchamacallit, the USF bus discussion, there is a bus stop right before the buses pull into the university area transit center. That's on 30th. 30th, the street that turns into Bruce B. Downs. I think it's 30th. There is a stop before it turns into the University Area Transit Center by the hospital that it seems that the people who work at the university get off at that stop now. But it's right, then the bus actually makes a very quick cut across 3-4 lanes of traffic to make the left-hand turn. So there is a stop that's kind of on campus, at least on the 275. I don't take the one because of the multiple stops, but I take the express that runs from downtown to the university. And
Yeah, unfortunately, the one doesn't go that far. So.
Okay. So maybe a 2-block deviation, change to the route, something like that. But there is a connection on campus. It just doesn't go past the perimeter. So just so you know. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you. Jason?
Hi, everyone. Jason Jackman with USF. I've been working with USF's student government, and recently they've shown interest in learning more about different transportation options and safety and actually transit. So if you're interested, I'd connect you all with the student body vice president, Sumit, and he's very interested in learning more. And they have the ability to survey the students. They do that very often to survey the students. So incorporating some kind of transportation questions and about transit would be really good, I think, for future of transit on campus or around campus.
Jason, do you know Dana Lazarus by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, I would reach out to her.
Okay.
She's the lead of transit now. I forgot they have a new name for it. But basically the transit advocacy group, Tampa Transit Now. Yeah, but they've just changed their name. So, and then also Justin.
Okay.
Yeah, I think probably right. Justin Willits and Dana Lazarus to try to connect that, and maybe we can get another ride or a few things like that. Okay, wow,
Sounds
great, lots of discussion. Yay, everybody loves the bus. Now we are gonna have to think about what we can do to maybe do a little bus ride.
Rather transfer next year. Too.
Yes, yeah, well, and that's the thing, you know, as we hit the, you know, April or May to start talking about what it might take to continue the program.
So yes, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, safety performance target. This is exciting.
Morning. I have a status update on the safety performance targets. Just share the screen quickly. Right, Connor Travis McDonald, I'm here to present a status report on the 2025 safety performance targets. A refresher on performance measures, they're required by NPOs out of the MAP 21 legislation and renewed under the FAST Act. The goal is to create a streamlined, performance-based and multimodal program to address the many challenges facing the U.S. transportation system. There are currently 5 categories of targets, safety being the first. Some others are transit assets, pavement and bridge condition, travel time reliability. So there are 7 metrics that we evaluate. 5 of them are required and 2 are elected by the CPO, that being the number of fatalities and motorcycle fatalities are 5. The key definitions, although I know many of you are familiar, 100 million miles traveled is the total number of miles traveled by a motor vehicle in a region over a certain period of time. Serious or incapacitating injury is an injury that causes permanent damage or loss of bodily function, and non-motorized being a bicyclist or pedestrian. We did take the time this year to look at the best practices and current trends in safety target setting. So 16% of respondents use a goal-driven approach. So this would be something like setting a target at 0 in 2050 and what we're used to get there. Data-driven, which I would categorize us to be, are based on expected outcomes given recent trends, model projections, program projects, and other safety efforts. And 41% use a hybrid approach of data-driven. So our method is to apply a 1% reduction factor, and that's based on available funding and identifying some federal highway best practice. So annual actual fatalities, you'll note that we had a significant decrease in 2023 to 2024. I think it's a 33% decrease, which is excellent news. We did reach out to FDOT and other reporting agencies just to make sure there's not been any differences in reporting, just to make sure that number is accurate and it's the same reporting methods as previous years. So we are recommending a 1% reduction here to 156. And with a significant decrease, hopefully that will continue. But with this significant decrease, we're viewing this as both a hybrid approach to goal-driven and data-driven, since it's a significant reduction. On a 5-year rolling average, also seeing a decrease. The recommended target being no more than 204. Fatality rate per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, recommending a target of no more than 1.34. Motorcycle fatalities has been more or less acceptable with a 5-year rolling average and a 1% reduction after recommending a target of 1. Annual serious injuries on a rolling average, seeing a decrease over the last 10 years, recommending no more than 9 things. Serious injury rate, recommending no more than 6.22. Non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, some decreases in recent years, recommending no more than 200. And the report card, you can see that we have 5 of the 7 targets that we set last year. The 2 non-MAP being motorcycle fatalities and serious injuries. One of the recommendations from Councilmember Herzog is to have these numbers be whole numbers. So we absolutely will do that next year, but once to be consistent from presentation. In context, Hillsborough saw a 33% decrease in fatalities, Pinellas 17%, Big Orlando and PO area 23% reduction, and Broward and PO 1% increase. So some takeaways: fatalities significant decrease in calendar year 2024, motorcycle fatalities and overall serious injury targets So what can we do? MPOs and the local government toolbox, design and prioritize safety projects in the CIP, continue to program safety studies in the WP, potentially specifically program a motorcycle safety study. And we are working the tri-area MPO and Cutter on a motorcycle safety study currently. And then we can continue prioritizing safety projects that are lower cost and shown. Report card again, so you can see this recommended 2025 targets on the right hand side. And some feedback that we got from the TDC, CAC, and the TBO board was generally to look into these numbers a little bit more, see what's the factor with the inner city factors. There was significant reduction in fatalities, and how can we do more of that? So we will be looking into that. We have a presentation coming in May to the TBO board. So some of the measures we're going to look into is density relation, geographic analysis, days of the week, certain hours of the day, whether these crashes are related to DUIs or problematic intersections, pedestrian related incidents, and the number of crashes and the breed that are fatal. So with that, we'll take any comments and questions.
David?
Seems like pretty good news. And you kind of hit on a question that I was going to ask about additional data on certain aspects of these accidents. You didn't list, though, I've been reading that these large trucks, the large pickup trucks, that the hood is now way higher. So when people are getting hit, they're getting hit like their whole body instead of being thrown up onto the hood. Is the type of vehicle in that analysis that that's involved in, especially I would assume pedestrian versus vehicle accidents, is that going to be looked at?
It wasn't mentioned by the board, but I can certainly include that.
I think that would, at least for me, be interesting to know if we're seeing that, hey, there's these larger trucks, there's a larger percentage of these larger trucks injuring people. Then I don't know what we could really do about that, but at least educating people on the danger of it.
The nomenclature, a lot of transit advocates call those kid crushers.
Yeah, they're massive. I'm tall, and I mean, there's ones where I'm like the hood is right here, so typically we don't like traffic, but just how my brain's processing this, is it the traffic and the people are stuck in it more, going slower? Is that the reason why the fatalities are down, or is it just because we're getting better at everything that from just my experience, I've been in traffic a lot more, I think, recently than the last 10 years ago. It just seems so, and I'm crawling usually. So yeah, I'm wondering if that has any impact in the lowering of the numbers.
I can't say for certain this year that it's been a factor, but definitely it is a factor. The more congestion, the safer it is actually. So we're going slower, and that's something we evaluated. 2020 and 2021. So I brought up the slides because they were higher when COVID was happening, right? So there was people were offering the roads. Again, we're measuring that. We do have the rate for 100 million vehicle miles traveled. I will say that the VMT rate is predicted for 2024. So it's a possibility that it's much higher than the number we used. We use a factor that, an increased factor that has been proven that we're pretty accurate year to year, but we can definitely see if the VMT is significantly increased. But it comes out a year later from a VOT, so it might take a bit to see.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron, first, every time I see this, it's shocking to me that we put in writing that we're okay, that 200 people die every year or whatever. It's just, what does that say about our culture, number one? Number two, I wondered if there's, I think my sense is that you're safer, your trips are safer if you're on transit. Maybe not walking to and from the bus stops, but once you're on the bus. And I wondered if that might be a way to further plug transit, is that it's just a safer way to get around. I don't know if there's any stats you can use to incorporate that in the future.
Absolutely. So there is a whole category of targets, public transit asset. That's It's public transit safety measures. We look at exactly that. So we're going to have a presentation, I think, for maybe updating those performance targets this year. So we can evaluate that based on.
It'd be good, I think, include that in your overall presentations.
Okay.
Thank you.
And one of the things that the CPO board talked about was, you know, how much of these improvements are those things that FDOT say that they can't pull out that are part of a project. So a lot of the Safer Streets initiatives are part of a project. They're not, so that when we categorize each project, it's a little skewed. So one of the things I think we asked was to see if they could pull out those Safer Streets initiatives out of projects like that have been completed. So how many of those things have we done? And is that maybe a reason? So maybe we incentivize more of that. And I think a really good example of that was we actually ended up talking about, what's the road they're trying to expand near McIntosh? We talked about McIntosh, and one of the county commissioners asked, well, you know, would this be cheaper if you didn't have the shared use paths on each side, so you wouldn't have to get as much land? And credit to FDOT, they said, this is our required plan. When we have a divided highway, we have to have shared use paths. So maybe that type of change within FDOT has also helped. So that type of thing may be a kind of all encompassing, but can we pull out those things and say, in the last 5 years, we've done more of this and this is why. So we are sort of looking at that. Karen?
If I may, it would be interesting to do a before and after. There's a road improvement, aka widening, to measure the crashes before and then the crashes after, and maybe even the flow of traffic to see if there's actually helped that much. Maybe that 3-second increase in speed wouldn't be worth the 7 more people who died or what have you. So to put it in black and white, I don't know if that's ever been done before, but just another potential suggestion.
I think FDOT does do that when they widen a road to see like because they want to show the benefit of widening, but you're right, maybe some extra numbers to take. Gus, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just want to comment that the installation of the mid-block crosses with the flashing lights, I think is probably contributing also to this reduction in numbers. There's a couple of streets that's on Cypress between Lois and Dale Mabry that I see that being used more often as opposed to people just crossing the street. And the consideration of some of those, like on Dale Mabry, maybe more often on Dale Mabry, or adding the flashing yellow lights for the crosswalk at the traffic lights on Dale Mabry, so that there's something to catch people's attention, particularly when they're driving, because Dale Mabry, they're going way over 35. They're like racing to the next light. So, but I also now, because I'm commuting up to New Tampa, that's 8 lanes on Bruce B. Downs for people to try to cross. So there should be more pedestrian or bicycle crossings as we consider, especially building more roads like Bruce B. Downs. I mean, I was standing waiting for the bus. I was like, that's 8 lanes speeding by. And there's really large gaps on the walking distance. So, but I wanted to say congratulations on the flashing yellow mid-block and maybe on Fowler or Fletcher. I don't know if the numbers have gone down on those streets since we've done all the improvements. Because that used to be, it seemed to me as a watcher of the news, that's where a lot of the accidents would occur. There in Bayshore. Bayshore has reduced, obviously, for the crossings and for the speed reduction and the speed bumps. But those were good reactions to accidents that were occurring. I don't know about Fowler and Fletcher. But I know that I see people when I commute using the flashing yellows more often now, as opposed to just standing at a traffic light pressing the button and it's flashes the hand or the minutes. Something directed at the traffic to tell them that there is this, what do you want to call it? That there's a warning that they need to be conscious. Hopefully that made sense. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Is there a way we can take this recording and transcription off just because I can't see if there are other hands while you aren't over here, Connor? So thanks. But Rebecca, I saw your hand.
A lot of people are hyper aware of the correlation between their driving record and their insurance rates. I know my adult children are super aware that they need to drive defensively now, because even having one accident, they could drop you or your rates could go through the ceiling. So like safe driving discounts and stuff that some offer are a real incentive. And even though we don't want to see anybody killed on our roads, 33% reduction in Hillsborough, that's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite huge. I'd also be interested to find out that crashes involving people who don't have insurance and drive anyway.
License.
Yeah, without a license. I mean, yeah, that's the hardest thing is you can't stop people from getting in a car. You can appeal to their sense of legal, but yeah. Well, but you don't go to jail if you drive without a license. They just make you stop driving. Like that's it. It's not a jailable offense. Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, by and large, I've, when I do ride-alongs with police officers, yeah, they said, I mean, they obviously.
They get a ticket?
Yeah, and then they're not allowed to drive the car anymore,
Okay,
like,
so
they have
can't
to.
drive what?
No, they'll have somebody either come and take the car, or tow it or whatever, but yeah, you can't get back in the car, but it doesn't,
Then they go around the corner.
yeah,
Get in the car.
yeah.
Once the police are gone.
Yes, who knows? But yes, I mean, you're right, that incentive is helpful. Anything else on this? Thank you so much, Connor. This is one of the things, and it's not making goals because I know that's not a thing, but I did mention that I did want to see whole numbers because we would have met that motorcycle because you can't have 0.93 of a person. And I know, like I said, it's not a matter of meeting a goal, but still at the same time to just show that while they have basically stayed the same, it's not good, but it didn't really go up. So me personally, I would have liked to have seen that motorcycle goal stay at 38 instead of go up, because to me, it was 38.
So
That,
would there be rounding? Like
yeah,
40,
yes.
93 would be 41.
Well, no, it was, well, the goal for last year was 37.93 and 38 people died. So we actually did meet that goal. So we could have kept the goal for this year down lower. And so I think that we didn't need to raise it to 41. If we stayed the same, our goal then, which technically we did stay the same, our goal would be to go down, not up. So again, I'm not trying to mess with people's, but just for continuity and,
Makes sense.
just,
Thank you.
thank you all. Okay. Michael. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too. Good morning. I'm Michael Marino, the Executive Director of Western Alliance. Thanks for having me today. I apologize for my tardiness. Coming in for a previous meeting, but appreciate the opportunity to talk about this project. So those of you who know me from my prior service on committee know I love transportation, I love history, and then I'm gonna start with a little bit of a history lesson here. So West Shore Boulevard, obviously you know it, but West Shore as kind of a district actually goes back to about 1925. The land that West Shore Plaza sits on today was platted in 1925. So we're talking about 100 years of West Shore Boulevard this year. That structure you see at the top right, that was for the Tampania subdivision. If you're you want to orient yourselves in modern times, you're standing at the intersection of Kennedy and West Shore looking north. The Walgreens is to your right, West Shore Plaza is to your left. So just imagine if that structure had survived. Imagine if that awning, that archway was still there today. I think it'd be pretty cool. You also see there in the picture, there's a bus on the left, a car on the right. That bus, the last time West Shore had direct transit service. It was provided by the developers of the Tampania subdivision. So obviously with the Great Depression, it went away and it hasn't come back since. So I know you had a transit presentation recently. I'm sorry, Justin hadn't missed that part. But eventually we'll get good transit service back to the West Shore district. Suburban development, really post World War II, starts to happen in West Shore. The Lincoln Gardens, Carver City neighborhood also dates back to the 1920s, was really developed in starting 1950s. That neighborhood's a little bit closer to Dale Mabry, but nonetheless part of the West Shore district. But the sort of that core of West Shore Boulevard starts to occur in the 60s and 70s. West Shore Plaza's 1967, Austin Center's late 60s, early 70s. In 1993, there's obviously the growth in West Shore, a lot of these large office buildings are coming in, and there's a thought of we need to expand West Shore Boulevard. South of 275 to Kennedy to this day is a 6-lane facility. North of 275 was not, it was 2 lanes. So that proposal actually came from FDOT on the bottom right there. You see there, 6 travel lanes, 3 in each direction. To think of how that would have gone into place, if you kind of know where the RS&H building is, and you know where the Starbucks is across the street, in order to create that 6-lane facility, you'd have to go from the front door of RS&H into the first half of the parking lot of that Starbucks. So you can imagine why that plan kind of went nowhere. But that was kind of the first thought of, all right, maybe we're not quite thinking of this right. And also, even in the early 90s, there was undeveloped land on West Shore. There were north of West Shore, really north of Cypress. There were undeveloped parcels. There were car rental facilities, some of which still exist to today. But there was developable land on West Shore Boulevard. So the thought was, well, make this look like Dale Mabry. You'll have more land, developable land. Obviously, there's pushback on that. And so that's what starts this process of how do we make West Shore Boulevard be a pedestrian-friendly street? How do we make it be a complete street? How do we make it be a grand boulevard? So look, we engaged with Terra Tectonics, who has worked on FDOT projects, who was involved in some of the aesthetics for the 275 interchanges in previous years, to look at a landscaping plan and design for West Shore Boulevard in the corridor from Boy Scout Spruce down to Kennedy. So there's only 3 landscaping pots in that corridor. The rest is really just these little concrete medians because, again, they want to maximize travel potential in that corridor. So you really only have concrete medians for most of the space. But we want to find a way to beautify the district. There has not been landscaping done on West Shore Boulevard since about 2008. And as I mentioned, this concept, the idea of making West Shore be a more beautiful street, dates back to 2005. So it's 20 years of trying to talk about how do we make this street look nicer. The last bullet point there. So I work for the West Shore Alliance. Caroline will be on our committee as well. She also works for the West Shore Alliance. We are the contractor, the West Shore Special Services District, which is a non-ad valorem assessment for the businesses in the West Shore District. So that's how this project would be funded. That's how currently it's being funded from Terra Tectonics. So that is a City of Tampa assessment that is collected by the city, and we work with the city to make sure we're doing transportation planning projects, things like this. Downtown has a similar system. Downtown is a much larger assessment. Also, downtown assesses residential properties. We do not assess single-family residential properties in West Shore. So we can do kind of the singles and doubles here. We can't hit home runs like Franklin Street. Will downtown. So the project limits as a yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Possibly, yeah. So as I mentioned, it goes from West Shore Boulevard, from Kennedy to Spruce Boy Scout. the St. Louis and County Resurfacing Project. FDOT is literally in the middle. The West Shore Interchange Project, as that happens, FDOT has their area responsibility essentially between Gray and Cypress. So they'll take care of that portion underneath the interstate. They'll landscape it. They're also doing landscaping in the next year or two on Kennedy Boulevard. So FDOT is doing their work, and credit to them. They actually work with us on some of the aesthetics for that Kennedy project as well as Western Interchange. So there's a coherent color scheme through the West Shore District. And that gets into the collaboration and working together. So this really started, the concept today goes back to the 2020 Complete Streets PD&E. So that's at the top right there. That PD&E follows a 2012-2013 study that the city did on a feasibility for West Shore Boulevard to be a complete street. And again, as I mentioned, that goes back to 2005. That was a City of Tampa West Shore Alliance feasibility study for just having some pedestrian improvements. West Shore Boulevard is a county road in the city. So I would, if I had to guess, I would say from the county's perspective, well, we got bigger fish to fry here. West Shore Boulevard, this is not to the level of Lithium Pinecrest. This is not to the level of Ehrlich Road. This is not to the level of Gun Highway. It's not to the level of Van Dyke Road. Development is occurring here. Development can maybe change the road itself. We need public investment here. If I had to guess, that's what I would guess. Next bullet point. The city plan was to originally plant succulents in the medians because West Shore Boulevard is seen as a high-speed corridor. It should not be a high-speed corridor. It's a high-speed corridor because people drive like maniacs. You put succulents in the road because that can be sustained in a high-speed corridor. West Shore Boulevard is a gateway into the city of Tampa. As far as I know, we do not have cactuses naturally occurring in Florida. West Shore Boulevard should look like a gateway. So the county original plan, just resurface the road, call it a day. City plan, let's throw some shells down, some succulents down, call it a day. We're like, no, this is not gonna work. How are we going to redevelop this road? How are we going to redevelop the parcels on this road? The thing with West Shore Boulevard, if you compare it to Ashley Drive, is night and day. There are uses, there are businesses on West Shore Boulevard that if those businesses came to you today, whether you're on city council or county commissioner, or even this spot, you would say, no way, how could you ever approve this? But they were approved on West Shore Boulevard and they still exist to this day. The highest and best use of property in West Shore Boulevard did not exist and does not exist, in part because of the quality of the road. So that goes into the vision of the Grand Boulevard, which came through that PD&E study the county did in 2020. Unfortunately, some things happened in 2020, so we didn't get to fully realize it. But I give the county credit because that PD&E study calls for a few things that we're going to see in this resurfacing plan. Namely, narrow the lanes, which allow for a slower speed limit. You can't just narrow the lanes and say, okay, well, people are going to slow down. You got to have them working in concert with each other. And mid-block crossings, you were just mentioning that on your call earlier. There'll be 2 mid-block crossings. One in front of West Shore City Center, which is where Union American is and First Watch is. That would connect across the street to the Ramada, which has already been approved for some version of a redevelopment. And further up the block where the Starbucks is, across from RSH building, that would be where the other mid-block crossing is. Those are really the only 2 points north of Cypress Street where you could do a mid-block crossing. The city would work on irrigation of the medians. And then we, the West Shore Alliance, through the Special Service District, would do the landscaping, would do the maintenance. So you'd have kind of a concept you see in other parts of Tampa, whether it be Channel Side or Harbor Island, where there's essentially another entity helping to manage the public investment into the project. TECO, the power lines that are along the right side of the road there, which is the eastern half of West Shore Boulevard, those power lines actually restrict the type of developments you can have on West Shore Boulevard. The Charlie's Steakhouse that's going at the intersection of West Shore Boulevard and Spruce. That project and the development for that parcel was delayed because of the fact that you had to manage these power lines in addition to cuts into the roadway, the driveways. So Charlie's figured it out, but it took a while because that's been vacant for quite a while. And we have a partnership with TECO. They're a member of ours, like they're a member of other business organizations, but they're actually in our strategic plan to work with us on burying those power lines, because that's how you create that 10-foot plus sidewalk that you'd see on the right side of that image at the top left there. And I already mentioned FDOT working with us on a color scheme that would kind of blend these two together and make a cohesive look for the West Shore District. I've already mentioned some of these things. The paint that you see in the medians is not paint, it's a concrete stain. It lasts a while. This actually goes back to the West Shore Alliance master plan, which is incorporated to the city's code of using colors where possible to accent whether it be a sidewalk or a median. Obviously, you can't plant in a 6, 8, 10 inch piece of concrete, but you could use this concrete stain. And Terra Tectonics has done this in parts of Tampa. They've done this in parts of Pinellas County on different projects. So we know that it's something that will last and also is viable to FDOT's colors and federal highway standards for the road. Sustainable plantings, look, we're not going to do succulents, but we'll do something that can survive a dry season and survive a wet season. The PD&E from 2020 actually talks about using swales. West Shore is not the best draining road, but there's ways that we could do landscaping on West Shore Boulevard, both in this interim step and in the future, to better handle stormwater, especially for the fact that this is an access point for Tampa Airport. If we're ever going to have another major storm, another major flooding event, we need to make sure that our roads around the airport would have that resiliency already built in. So this is some of the proposals that Terra Tectonics came up with. You see these pattern crosswalks. The top left, what you see there, the current conditions, that's really just kind of like a blasted material. It's has not obviously held up. That also material is about 13 years old now at this point, older than that. The kind of proposed a concept, maybe a different type of pattern there. The biggest thing from the West Shore Alliance perspective is to make sure that these sidewalks are highly visible and that they withstand normal wear and tear. In some cases, we're gonna have the functionality over the beauty, because right now we don't have either. Let's just start with functionality, and then maybe work with beauty and at a later point. RSH did pedestrian counts. West Shore at Cypress is obviously a very highly traveled intersection for pedestrians, and we'll work on this later on as well. Yes.
Are you considering making these raised crosswalks? I've been reading a lot about how that is something that helps cars realize, oh, hey, I need to slow down here.
I don't think it'd be viable for this particular intersection. There's a lot going on here. Each left turn lane is can make a left with the permissive left where you go against traffic. You're so close to 275 right there at the background. I don't think you'd want something that would slow up traffic, but the mid-block crossings with the flashing beacons and response buttons and the landscaping should hopefully bring the traffic, this overall speeds down to promote a safer passage for a pedestrian. So this, going back to the point I just made, so that those trees in the median are actually trees that can grow up to 40 feet tall and only about 6 feet wide. So those trees in the median will hopefully help kind of deflect the visual field and slow traffic down. There's a bus stop there to the right that is currently used on a semi-regular basis. But again, we don't have the best of transit service in West Shore. When we did our transportation action plan in 2018, we interviewed the then general manager of International Plaza. He told us that they had more bicycle traffic in International Plaza than transit traffic. And when you look at the timing of the bus routes, that kind of made sense. And I told the folks from Terra Tectonics, I appreciate that you use this picture, because anything that covers up the dollhouse sign is a good idea for landscaping on West Shore Boulevard. So having these trees be almost 40 feet tall when they're finally fully grown would be a good idea. You see there, and as David pointed out, those on the Zoom can't see it, but as David pointed out, it is 45 miles per hour on West Shore Boulevard. That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever for a corridor, an urban corridor with buildings almost the street in many cases to be 45 mile per hour speed limit. FDOT, to their credit, on Kennedy has dropped the speed limit. But we got to work now on West Shore Boulevard and Lois as well. We do have some momentum on Lois, because there's a complete streets plan that's being funded as far as the tip. West Shore Boulevard, though, is a harder nut to crack here. As I mentioned, we've been working on this for over 30 years. With the landscaping, going back to sustainability, crushed lava rock has been used in Pinellas County instead of mulch because it kind of drains better. Right now, when you go down West Shore Boulevard, we've just thrown some mulch down in the medians, because otherwise you'd have exposed unused irrigation pipes. No joke. If the mulch was not there, you would just see brown hoses in the median. So we threw down some mulch, covered it up, rains came. All right, we gotta find a different type of mulch. Fortunately, the best mulch for bad weather is cypress mulch, which is not the most sustainable. So we have to do something from a sustainability perspective to make sure that those medians last. The textured surfaces and materials, I've already mentioned that. Those trees that are in the median, those can be lit. There's power to those medians because of the irrigation. So imagine West Shore Boulevard fully lit year round. You could do uplighting, you could do kind of Christmas tree lighting, what have you. But again, creating that gateway for Tampa in the same way that when you get off the interstate, you go down Ashley Drive, you have this panoramic of the development of Tampa and what Tampa is. You get out of the airport, you go down West Shore Boulevard, and you see two of the first things you see are adult businesses. How do we make sure that we develop the road in such a way that in the future, we have the type of development that we want, that we have the type of district that we want to see as an organization, and that the city of Tampa wants to see as well. Here's more detail on those median landscaping plans. So that top portion is if you did a ribbon planting along the sidewalk. That's outside of this scope. This is really, we're just talking about curb to curb. But the West Shore overlay talks about how to add landscaping to West Shore Boulevard. So when properties redevelop on West Shore Boulevard and Kennedy, Dale Mabry, and other classified streets of district, they have to have a certain landscaping scheme. So the AAA office building and auto care center actually meets the landscaping code. There's a brick inlay, there's shade trees, but it's such a small portion on the street that you don't get to see the full vision of it. But having shade trees on the sidewalks is a major focus for us going forward. And you see there how you landscape those medians. The medians, for the most part, are pretty narrow, but where we can, we do want to add those trees. As I mentioned, those trees are kind of tall and narrow. They stay out of the travel lanes, but again, provide that kind of change to the depth of the field vision that would hopefully start to slow traffic down. And those blue waves and chevrons as part of the median painting would match the West Shore interchange aesthetics. So this is the timeline as we know it. And this is the part where we as the West Shore Alliance and our board members and our partners have been banging our head against the wall for 30 years. This concept of resurfacing West Shore Boulevard and providing an interim improvement was in the project list for all for transportation in 2018. That's going to go forward. Then it was funded by the American Rescue Plan, 2021. We're now in 2025. We as an organization, we kind of exist because at the time in the 80s, there wasn't a plan for West Shore, especially because of the fact that the core of West Shore is a county road in the city. The other major roads are state highways. So the involvement never really matched up. So the West Shore Alliance organized to kind of create that plan, that vision. A lot of that has now been incorporated into comprehensive plan, city code, so it's a much different scenario. But at least as it relates to West Shore Boulevard today, you still have that conundrum of you have the county involved, you have the city involved, FDOT runs through the middle of it. It's not really anyone's responsibility, so we try to act as the convener. And hopefully by providing this plan fully baked, even though we're ahead of the game here, we just didn't want to wait anymore. Want to make sure we had a visual of what West Shore Boulevard could be, so that as construction starts to occur on West Shore Interchange, also as redevelopment starts to occur at West Shore City Center and West Shore Plaza, we have something to show people to say, this is what it's going to be in the future. So we appreciate your support. I don't necessarily imagine anything coming to LRC at any point in the near future, but we've been very appreciative of the support of the TPO through the TIP Uber products in West Shore. There's a traffic signal going in at Boy Scout Manhattan. It was the only signal into International Plaza that had no, only intersection, no signal. I personally believe it's the only fire station in Tampa that did not have a signal. It was one of the most dangerous intersections in Hillsborough County. And that project came from our action plan, and then it was adopted by the TIP through conversations with the city, the TPO, and FDOT. They identified that, and that signal should be fully utilized by the end of February of this year. And then Lois, I mentioned the Complete Trees project that's long overdue. That goes through really mainly a single family neighborhood like Burns Park City. But again, another street that the speed limit is just way too high. And there's been some serious incidents on that street as well. But this is about making sure that we have the infrastructure that not just supports safety, but also supports future economic development. And West Shore, being a gateway to Tampa, deserves this type of treatment.
Thank you. Gus, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mike. You and I sat next to each other at these meetings, I don't know, 7 years ago when I first started on the board. And you convinced me about the West Shore choke point and the development of the three underpasses along 275. I lived in that neighborhood for 3 years, and then I heard that the Trask Street underpass is not going to be completed now. So it's really just going to be West Shore and then the one that kind of goes into the parking lot at the mall. And that made complete sense to me because there is that only one place besides Lois that you can get underneath the highway and create traffic. Are those plans still in modification or change, or is it still just going to stay West Shore as the only underpass?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So this, what Gus is referring to is that as part of the West Shore Interchange project, this goes back to the original concept of it in the late 80s, early 90s, is that there are these three new roads built underneath the interstate. So going from kind of, if you're looking at a map, left to right, west to east, the western road is Rio Street. If you know where McDonald Training Center is and Cypress Point Park, that's Rio Street. That'll connect underneath 275, really underneath the Howard Franklin Bridge. That is a dead end today. That's one of the last undeveloped waterfront parcels in the urban core. There's actually undeveloped waterfront land because it's a dead end. The viability of that project would be very different if Rio Street connects to Kennedy. The next one is Oxon, which Gus referred to, goes underneath 275, we connect it to the backside West Shore Plaza. Oxon exists today, but it's broken up by West Shore Plaza. So when West Shore Plaza develops, Oxon would actually go through the plaza, and the plan accounts for that as well. It would be a relief valve, especially a pedestrian relief valve, for the western half of West Shore. Trask Street, as Gus alluded to, was considered to be not fully opened. We pushed back against that. So Trask Street would go open through south of Cypress, underneath 275 and Kennedy. The challenge for Trask, at least at the surface level, the street level, where Gus used to live, is that the city of Tampa needs to get involved in neighborhood traffic calming. cut-through traffic is the bane of our existence in the city. If it were a block or two off a major corridor. But there is some funds available at the neighborhood level in West Shore that's directly tied to development. The city has, in the past, the budget actually shown where the money is. It has not been spent necessarily. But that traffic calming needs to occur because for the interchange to be viable, the exit kind of has to go off tracks. But the other side of that coin is, in order to have transit viability in West Shore, you need a grid. And right now, you don't have a grid. So Rio, Oxen, and Trask help create the grid, especially with Oxen right now. We go into the backside of West Shore Plaza, where there's a heart service center. Oxen does that, and then Trask, we go where the intermodal center is. That's an old DoubleTree site. It's undeveloped right now, but transit in West Shore is a whole bigger issue. But West Shore, we've done a good job building roads, we've done a good job building highways. The struggle is having pedestrian access and having transit access. Those 3 roads get us with the pedestrian and transit access.
So,
Mike.
can you say that again? Rio and Trask?
Rio, Oxen, and Trask. So Oxen and Trask are kind of are the sort of the left and right, the west and east of West Shore Boulevard. If you think of Dale Mabry and South, Dale Mabry and South Tampa, it's like Church, Dale Mabry, Hines, or Church, Dale Mabry, Sterling. It's that 1 block off.
So the Occident, will that connect with West Shore Plaza?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's where I was lost.
Yeah, it won't be a straight shot. It will kind of come down and loop around and come back. And obviously it dead ends once you cross Kennedy into the developments over there. It does not reach Cleveland. But Trask, from a cut-through traffic, neighborhood concern, Trask would have to be solved. You need 4-way stops, you need followers, needs some way to basically penalize the driver from cutting through the neighborhood. That traffic exists to this day. But it would be worse, once construction begins to occur on the West Shore interchange.
Gus, was that all?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to confirm, because I had heard Trask had been canceled. So
It has not been canceled, but FDOT was considering a plan that would have only allowed it as a pedestrian cut through. But it needs the full cut through in order to make the intermodal center viable. Because that would be a public-private partnership.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. Karen?
Just, you've been a great champion for West Shore Boulevard, so thank you for all your hard work on that. The question is there some kind of requirement for an overlay district or another planning tool as the parcels redevelop that they have to be right at the street?
So the way the West Shore overlay is written is that if you redevelop your parcel by more than 50%, you have to meet the updated code. So there isn't necessarily a requirement that you have to be pushed forward to the street. But there will be a requirement that you have to meet certain landscaping protocols and wider sidewalks and things like that. You know where lots are going to Metro Diner is on Kennedy. If you remember when they redeveloped it, they basically ripped the guts out of it. But the structure stood. There are even businesses that were alive during that time period. They did that so they didn't have to meet the overlay. So when that wider sidewalk went in, it wasn't because the development changed. It was because FDOT, when they did Kennedy, agreed that those sidewalks should meet the overlay standard. FDOT was not required to do that. They could have built a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk. But FDOT said, we'll do this wider sidewalk. We'll also put in this mid-block crossing right there as well. Whereas a AAA building on West Shore Boulevard, because it's a brand new building, they had to meet that overlay. Even though it's a small segment, it's maybe 50 feet wide. They met the overlay with shade trees and brick inlay and things like that. The thing about West Shore that is kind of, you would not necessarily think about this, but the West Shore City Center, which is the old Austin Center, when Al Austin built that property, he believed at the time that the technology would change that would make West Shore viable for residential development. At the time, you were so close to the airport that you could not have a residential building there on West Shore Boulevard. That's part of the reason why it's parking lots out front. You could drop a building on some of those parking lots right now and not change anything with the business operations of those buildings. 1515 West Shore, that'll be the first apartment building built on West Shore Boulevard. The reason why that's viable because planes now have better navigational tools that they can basically stay on the opposite side of West Shore Boulevard and not get close to any residential on the east side of West Shore Boulevard. That building will be built to the street. It will have that access. But there's no requirement, buildings today, unless they overcome that 50%, that they have to really do anything other than just, meeting modern building standards.
David.
This is an awesome plan, and you know me, I love street trees, like actual trees in the street. So it's great that you've been able to work with Tico, because usually Tico is the one that I've heard is always, have they agreed to fund that completely about the underground? Is it more of as things develop, they'll be how is that?
So RS&H and Landis Evans were the consultants who worked on that 2020 Hillsborough County Complete Streets PD study. In that process, they talked to Tico about, what would it cost to bury these power lines? Now the estimate at the time was only $2 million. This is 5 years later now, maybe 8 to 10 years later by the time it gets done. But the benefit of burying those lines, there's obviously the pedestrian development benefit, but it's the resiliency. And during Milton, the power lines, not on Western Boulevard, but on Cypress Street, a few blocks down, it wasn't the lines that fell in the street, it was the actual poles. The poles about 10 feet up just completely fell down into the street. So now that project, this is not a pedestrian project, it's not a beautification project. Burying those lines is a economic resiliency project. And anyone who was able to see a TV at that time period in Tampa, you saw downtown fully lit. Just power lines on the ground, all the infrastructure on the ground. We need to have West Shore be in that same level. We have a lot of the city have buried power lines, but the airport is there. And what we've been told by our partners who are in the hotel industry is that part of the reason why Hillsborough County did not evacuate Zone C, because the hotels in West Shore that were in Zone C were fully booked. You had people from Pinellas County who went into those hotels, people in Hillsborough County went to those hotels. Those hotels need power. So in a glancing blow storm, as much as this was a glancing blow, we need to make sure that we have viable power sources, not just for the airport, but for a hotel like the Renaissance, the AC, even some of the hotels on Dale Mabry that are limited service, but during a hurricane are so desperately needed because we just don't have the shelter space, especially if we have to, sustain evacuations from Pinellas County, parts of southern Hillsborough County and the southern peninsula of Interbay Peninsula, where you would think, well, I've never got flood. Then you walk out of your house during Helene and you're ankle deep in water. So we need to have those buried power lines sooner rather than later, whether or not we have that Grand Boulevard, Nation West Shore Boulevard.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah. Thank you so much. That was awesome. It's so nice to see. But you've been at it for a really long time, but it'll be really wonderful to see. We look forward to you coming back with some pictures or a little tour or whatever it takes to. It's just very exciting. Congratulations.
Well, this group is very important to the overall work of the community and the overall work of the TPO. And we as an organization pulled up that stoplight at Boy Scout Manhattan as proof of how we work as an organization and how that as an organization we work with the city, TPO, and FDOT. I mean, that's a $2 million, $3 million project that will actually save lives. It's not often that a business organization gets to say we did something that is going to save lives. That's a result of collaboration. Your executive director, John Wong, was the guy who made the kind of first call saying, hey, we saw this project, can you talk to us about it? What do you think? How can we get this going? He worked with Stephen Benson, the city at the time. Those two got this rolling, and then Secretary Gwynn started looking at these traffic reports and saying, why are there all these deaths at the intersection? And that's when FDOT said, well, actually, it's in here. And that came from discussions with us, but also Roland Park school parents, Lincoln Gardens, Park City, they had to live with that. So it really, neighborhoods, school parents, we happen to be the vehicle, but those folks who live in the neighborhood and brought their kids over to school, they were really the ones dealing with it, and it's their win as much as you like to claim credit for it.
Excellent. And a little bit off topic before I go back to David. We were just talking about different groups that might want to do a Route 1 ride along. And it sound, even though I know West Shore, you all have been begging for bus service, but that might be something for your members who haven't had a chance to ride the bus. So that might also be a good thing to set up with Dana and Justin to see what we can do. And I'd be happy to join you on that as well, just to, again, I know you're championing it, but to get more of your members to really like dive in and champion.
Well, the next phase of West Shore is mixed use. The only way you encourage mixed use is by having an alternative to auto travel. The West Shore Plaza plan that's approved is about 800 parking spots short of what it should be. You're gonna need transit in order to make that project fully realized. And then with the failure of T-BARTA, there is no premium transit plan for West Shore. The plan was T-BARTA's plan. So we would like to eventually get back in the queue to have some sort of express bus, rail, what have you, to be for West Shore to be considered part of that. But we'll need the basics first before we get to that step.
Yeah, but just saying, you know, the more people that try it and get it, it always helps. David.
This is more of a kind of my own curiosity related to land use. You know, in the comp plan, it's got the RMU 100, the biggest category outside of downtown. So we're always promoting mixed use. But you had stated that you guys, the ad valorem is only tied to non-residential. So,
Well, it's an apartment building because that's considered a commercial property.
okay,
So a apartment building is assessed,
okay, good.
but
I was wondering.
you go one block in off of West Shore Boulevard or Kennedy, you know, townhomes, single family homes, those don't pay into the assessment.
Okay,
Whereas like if you're in downtown, you own a condo, you're paying into the assessment. So there's a big gap. And then downtown obviously has different overlays of
Right.
CRA, streetcar districts, things like that. And the SSD, we just have the SSD.
so if we saw more condo buildings in West Shore, you wouldn't be assessing those, just apartments? Or I was also curious if it's a mixed use and you've got commercial on, is the whole building then commercial? Or are you just assessing on the square footage of the commercial?
Well, for the, I mean,
I guess most of them are in apartment buildings.
yeah, I mean, if there is retail in a residential building in West Shore, it's probably nothing more than a coffee shop. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of
Yeah,
a scenario like that. It's a mix of usage, retail, and commercial for the most part. But having more residential in the West Shore district, while, maybe that property isn't assessed or individually assessed, is gonna add to the overall economic viability of West Shore. So yeah, so to your point, if you build, 10 townhomes, right? Okay, maybe they're not paying into the assessment, but the fact that that's there adds viability of, okay, well, this doesn't need to be a 5-foot sidewalk anymore, this needs to be a 10-foot shared use path.
Right.
So it does help overall.
thanks. I was just curious.
Thank you so much. Okay, does anyone have any old business? Anybody have any new business? Okay, well, I'll just put in a plug. If you haven't ridden the Free Route 1, give it a try this month. And I'm really excited to hear that groups wanna get together and do that. Connor?
Danielle Riffenberg has
Oh,
her hand up.
thank you. I did not see that. Danielle?
Good morning.
just want to let everybody know, I work for the City of Tampa Parks and Recreation Department. We are hiring for a landscape architect too. If anybody knows any landscape architects who would love to come work for this city, I can share that link with y'all. It's also on the City of Tampa's webpage, so it's open through the end of the month.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so, yes, Emily.
I had an announcement. If you will remember, the Gulf Coast Safe Street Summit was scheduled in October, and it has been rescheduled for February 13th and 14th. And Walk by Tampa is hosting, along with Plan Hillsborough, is hosting a rescheduled Safe Streets and Community Conversation with National Leaders on February 12th at the Seminole Heights Garden Center. We've set 5:30. Tickets are available through the Walk by Tampa Facebook page and website. It's going to be a really cool event. The speakers we have coming are Gil Penalosa, the founder of 880 Cities. Lisa, did you want to plug yours as well? And Jessica Hart, who is the founder of Families for Safe Streets. So it's going to be a really great event. Please get your tickets right away. They are free, but it'd be helpful to know how many people are going to be joining us.
Now, there's a third opportunity.
Okay.
We just scored getting Gil Penalosa to speak at Cafe Home Tampa on Friday morning. And I wanted to emphasize that he was not going to be doing repeat events. He's been asked to tweak his message unique to each of these opportunities. So obviously, Safe Streets for All at the summit, inspiring doable change and effective advocacy for our evening community conversation with Families for Safe Streets speaker, and public places, parks, and placemaking are the emphasis for the Cafe Home Tampa event. I want to thank the Downtown Partnerships, Karen Press, for helping us secure that opportunity to bring him to a bigger and broader audience while he's still here for the rescheduled event, which was hard to do.
Can you say again what his focus will be for the Cafe Con Tampa?
Yes, public spaces, parks, and placemaking.
Does that include transit?
He's been encouraged to ride Route 1 when he visits Tampa. He comes early and he runs around town, mobility he's around town. And so we've added that to one of the things we want to do. He will explore all of downtown and the surrounding areas and put unique images in his final presentation.
Awesome. I only say that because that's a great audience to learn about.
Yes.
Which that reminds me, I need to try to get on Cafe Con Tampa.
Thanks for reminding me. We will use that in our coaching.
Okay.
Follow up.
Karen, can you repeat dates and times on that?
Sure. It's the evening of February 12th, 5:30 start time. And free babysitting and kid activities at that one. And that's at the Seminole Heights Garden Center. The Gulf Coast Safe Streets Summit is $15 for public and public agencies and $25 for consultants, etc. That is 1 to 5 with an included free reception from 5 to 7 on the 13th. And then on February 14th on Valentine's Day, that begins at 8 a.m. and it includes a breakfast and it's a $12 fee ticket. If any of the tickets are a hardship for anybody, you may make requests for scholarships.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the update. And what's the website that people can go to learn about all these things at once?
planhillsboro.org.
Okay.
GCSSS. But just go to the website and search Gulf Coast, which I do all the time because it pops right up.
Okay, Gulf Coast.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
I believe that there's flyers right outside of your room on the little table on the left.
Oh, great. Okay. Wonderful.
This one's emphasizing the TPO event, but it has the website and it takes you to all 3 events.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Tell all your friends.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
there's a lot going on. That's so exciting. So thank you all so much for this. And our next meeting is
February 18th.
February 18th. So I hope to see you all at this before I see you at the next meeting. But if there's nothing else, I move to it, or yeah, adjourn. I move to adjourn. Yeah, adjourn at what, 11:03. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
One of the same. I sent as a